Wow, kind of sounds like the Megillah, Mordecai.
All right. Well, it is. Yes, that's right. We have a long tradition of not bowing down to idols. Um, Although I think that we. My one little global statement here is we're struggling with that. The Jewish people, all people, seem to be struggling with this idea of idolatry, and that is if I leave it at the broad level, I think I can say it without causing serious problems. But I see idolatry all over the place, and it's something we need to really look at again and challenge in ourselves. What I'd rather look at are the bird feeders that are on Irvin's counter there. The hummingbirds are going to be happy as long as my cat isn't around. Anyway, let us start our learning. Let's say our bracha together. Baruch atah Adonai. Oh, actually, sorry, and that now I just committed a grave sin. I did a bracha levatala. I did a nullified prayer. But we said we would try to learn the melodies. So instead of just saying it, let's recite it. I'm going to recite it in the melody, and you could just respond with Amen. I'll use our weekday melody, Nusach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah.
Amen.
Great. So if you'll remember from our last class, we talked about that prayer that we just recited, and we talked about the follow up prayer, this beautiful thing about the taste of Torah being sweet in our mouths, and the deliciousness of it for us and for multiple generations to come, and all of us becoming knowers of your name and learners of your Torah for its own sake. And we discussed the Lishma part of it. We have this idea of Torah Lishma, which is learning Torah for its own sake, not for the sake of a prize, which is there's a reference in Pirkei Avot that we not learn for the sake of a prize, but rather learn for its own sake. Okay, and then as you see, that same melody is used in the follow-up prayer here. This is the same prayer that we use whenever we read Torah. So we said we're going to learn some Torah, and then we have this line that says, Baruch atah Hashem, blessed are you God, our God, ruler of the universe. That part is all stuff you already know. And then Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato, who chose us from all the nations and gave to us his Torah. Baruch atah Hashem noten haTorah. Blessed are you, God, who gives Torah. Notice a couple things. First of all, it's who gives. Some will translate it as this one does as giver of the Torah, but I prefer to use it in the present tense as a verb, that God is a Torah giver. That is on an ongoing level. It's not that God gave and it's over, a one and done. It's that Torah continues to grow out of the human condition. And the way I look at that is that as time goes on, so this is obviously a liberal perspective of Torah, that I am not a strict constructionist. I'm not an originalist. The Torah is an ongoing process. That's why we don't say Reformed Judaism, we say Reform Judaism. Judaism that continues to reform, refashion as wisdom grows. There is an emphasis in our text implicit with that on learning. Learning is at the core of our tradition. In fact, we really haven't had any significant prayers yet in our day, and before we're even out of the house, we're teaching Torah. So learning is this lishma for its own sake is at the core of the Jewish identity. Growth intellectually and educationally, and being committed to that process. We can't just be passive about learning. We have to engage in it. But moreover, the learning is not just about something in the past. We're not the Dead Poet Society. We are a ongoing unfolding of divine existence in the universe. And so from that perspective, we don't reject science. I think it's important for us to remind ourselves that as a nation, as a people, we have never rejected science. There may be some within our community who do, and there may be people who are fundamentalist in their orientation, but overall, the Jewish people has been committed to science and to growth and to making sense of a world that was given to us. So the only thing that really God is understood as here is prime mover, the one who brought us into this universe. But after that, God, is still giving us space to figure it all out, and we continue to have these marvelous discoveries, from finding water on Mars and the possibility that there was life there long ago, a likelihood of it even, to modern science and discoveries in the medical fields. Even the whole controversial universe around vaccines, I struggle so much with people who wholeheartedly just reject vaccines, because our science it's an anti-science perspective to just say that all that scientific method was garbage. So our tradition is that we are notain, that God is notain haTorah. God gives the Torah. And by Torah, it really is better translated not as Sefer Torah, the book of Torah that we see in the synagogue, but really Torah as teaching. A moreh is a teacher. So anyway, that I think is important to recognize, number one. And then number two, we have this notion of chosenness that's embedded in this prayer. Asher bachar banu mikol hamim. God chose us from all the nations. This is something that I wonder if there's any commentary on this. I should look and see if there is presented here. Here's Jewish Thought. Let's see what they have. Okay, it's just that one piece by Rav Tzvi Yehuda Cook. But no, I don't see any other English translations, although there seems to be a related text from the Tanakh. Well, you shall be to me, that's a great source to put in here. You shall be to me a mamlechet kohanim v'goy kadosh, that God is establishing us as a special nation, and from that we should be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, and that's what God chose for us. Now, just a note before we go on to the next piece is that Reconstructionist Jews have a really hard time with this idea of God choosing us. Not because of chosenness per se, not the idea of being chosen, but because of the anthropomorphism that's implicit with this. I think it's probably a little bit of both, but Reconstructionist Jews do not say Asher bachar banu mikol amim when they're called up to Torah and when they are in this part of the service. They say Asher keravtanu la'avodato, that blessed are you, God, ruler of the universe, who drew us near to his service, to God's service. Let me confirm that. I'm going to grab my Recon prayer book right here. Siddur Kol Neshama, a great prayer book. Very creative in here. All sorts of original thinking that the Reconstructionists have done. And in the Torah service, because I don't know that this is a holiday prayer book, so it's not the weekday, so I can't look as clearly. Oh, where are we? Hang on, anybody, any comments or questions people want to ask as we do this?
Yeah, one thing I feel that the reason there are so many Jewish Nobel Prize winners in the sciences and in mathematics is because of the Torah. The Torah has so many aspects of it with numbers and having to figure out the calendar days and which days and how many numbers less this amount of numbers and that amount of numbers on the days of the week, and coming up with so much structured mathematics with division and multiplication in a time, if you talk about 2,000 years ago, where you didn't have schools teaching basic mathematics. Well, the Torah taught basic mathematics, for thousands of years now. And that's just kind of thrown out there with the basics with you, where you were talking about with science, and how even, Orthodox and ultra Orthodox will have with numbers and scientific discoveries. Just a little throw out.
Anybody, thank you for that. Anybody have other thoughts on either that or something else related to it?
Well, I was thinking this morning, you and I were texting about something unrelated, but it got me thinking about how in the diaspora, we as a people congregated in cities where there were institutions of learning, great learning, even though we were banned from a lot, some of the higher levels of learning, there was still this sort of drive to get those PhDs and to really delve into, especially, after the Enlightenment, to really participate in the advancement of civilization in that way. We didn't in the diaspora, go and even except for Tevye the milkman, but we did sort of go towards the centers of learning, and so that is part of. It's not also it's the Torah definitely, and our obsession with reading books. You go to a Jewish home, there are books. You know what? That's a huge generalization.
Well,
But
I don't know. Is it? I mean, we do
well, I
have a
think
history of books.
I've told you a story once that I was doing a parent-teacher conference, and the father of this kid, an estranged couple, came in. He said, "You're Jewish, aren't you?" "Yeah." "Well, I bet you have a lot of books at home." And I go, "Yeah." "Well, his mother's family has no books," and he was freaking out. So, anyway, we do sort of go in that way. Not, and then there was this reversal when we went to, the mandatory Palestine to create, farms. And it was like the sort of anti-intellectual movement that our people had at the beginning of the state of Israel, which was really interesting too, except they'd sneak off and
Yeah.
study, I think,
Yeah, I
in
don't
those
think it
little
was as
kibbutzes.
anti-intellectual as it was a redirection of our intellect toward
Hmm.
productivity. I mean, think about all of the exporting of technology that Israel has produced for. I mean, sometimes it gets us in trouble, but our relationships with countries like Kenya or places within the African continent, part of it was exporting our drip irrigation, which was a Jewish invention, right, an Israeli invention, to far and wide lands, and so I
Well,
would just
it was,
challenge it a little bit.
yeah, no, but I think there was sort of a movement to get away from learning for the sake of learning, and you know,
Yeah, yeah, and maybe
embracing the earth and planting and growing and removing the rocks and physical labor. It's that it's I don't know. Anyway, I'll stop.
no, but
Yeah, I
I
just
think you're
want to
onto
pipe
something.
in.
Yeah, go
Yay,
ahead,
Avital.
Avital.
I just want to pipe in on that. That I think if it was a return to the land and embracing of agriculture in that, having grown up in one of those communities. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes,
No?
yeah, we
I'm
hear
gone?
you. We hear you, but
Am I
you're
back?
yellow instead of green.
Okay, so what I want to say is that there was a lot of intellectual and artistic expression and museums and the whole preservation of our history alongside embracing the land and the agriculture aspect of Judaism, because it actually is biblical as well.
Right. I mean, I think maybe what you're pointing to is, I mean, Sylvia, I'll just use our own family history, that our grandmother, who I think you're the namesake of, Sophie, was known as, from at least from Dad, as a Hebraist. Now, they were pretty darn secular, our grandparents, and yet they knew Hebrew, and I think that there was an appreciation of the Bible as a source less of religious commitment and more about sort of a national identity. And I think that, you know, a lot of the kibbutzniks and whatnot shifted away from Torah specifically to modernity and Haskalah, the Enlightenment movement, and embracing science. So it was a pivot, not out of rejection of the older stuff necessarily in some of them, but for some it was. You know, it was a different focus of learning, I think. And I think Avital's words kind of match that. Although, Avital, you're now a red, which means you probably can't even hear anything I'm saying.
No, I can hear. Ah,
Where are
okay.
you, by the
Never
way?
mind. I just finished the canyon on the Grapevine.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I think it was a hybrid. There was some rejection of the old dogmatic religious thing. You know, if there was the God, the Holocaust would not have happened, type of a thought. But definitely continued embrace of science and education and intellectual pursuit.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for that, and thanks, Irvin, for getting us on this, and Sylvia for your comments. And so, Torah as unfolding and no longer about halakha and more about science. Because I think, you know, remember that Yeshiva University was an institution built in the United States called where the focus became on Torah Umada, which is basically Torah and science, or knowledge, and knowledge of the universe. So there was a rejection of the rejection of science that was implicit in a modern Orthodox Jewish setting. I think the big change of the 21st century is the growth of ultra-Orthodox denominations, the Haredi movement and the Hasidic and Litvish sort of learning that's going on. And it's actually a problem because many of the Jewish schools are not producing enough knowledge in these kids. They know their Torah backwards and forwards, but they can't multiply. And this is a big fight that happens on questions of separation of religion and state right now. So, but I think the Torah is pretty clear about the value of learning. And this prayer is part of that. Okay. Any last comments on this, or can we keep going? I think we've said enough. Okay. So then after that, we start with examples of learning. So we start with something out of the Torah, right? Which is out of, I guess it's number 6. I think it's number 6, the Birkat Kohanim, the priestly benediction, which is just recited as a text. You know, we see this in the prayer book during the Amidah, that it's recited as part of the benching duchanin, right? The whole tradition of the priests, the Kohanim in the congregation coming up and with their talesim over their heads, and so you can't see them, blessing the congregation. But this is just in the context of daily practice, and you do this even on your own. Yeah, it is number 6. Okay, and then you go from that, this may God bless you and keep you, to an example of something from what is Mishnah. I think it's Mishnah, but it might also be Talmud. I need to check. Yeah, it is Mishnah. Oh, I see. It's an amalgam of the two. But another learning. So the first principle is, may God take care of you in ways that the rabbis interpret as being materially and spiritually, right? God bless you and keep you means physical protection. Ya'er Hashem panav elecha v'chuneka. May God be gracious to you, but it could also mean educate you, which is kind of interesting. It's vichuneka is chen is grace, but chinuch is education. So I like to think of it as may God's countenance or God's face shine upon you and cause you to learn. Although that's definitely a poetic interpretation. And then may God's countenance or God's face, metaphorically speaking, lift you up and bring to you peace or give you peace. So that's like at the most broad level. So, may your society be stable is sort of how I interpret that. So may you have physical well-being, spiritual well-being, and societal well-being. That might be a way to interpret this Birkat Kohanim. And then you have a whole series of obligations that are put on you, most of which are about ethics. And one of the reasons why this is such a powerful prayer. Elu devarim shein lahem shiur. These are the things for which there is no shiur or portion. There's no measurement of it. Hapeha v'hapikurim v'hara'ayon ugmilu chasadim v'talmud Torah. So peah is observing the law of the corner of your fields. Bikurim is about the first fruits, meaning giving the first fruits to the temple. Bahar Ayon, which they translate as the appearance offering, because laharot is to show. What do they say here? I'm kind of curious what they're going to say.
I think it's idea. Rayon is idea.
Yeah, but isn't that with an ayin?
Yes.
So this is with
Sorry,
an aleph.
I can't see the text.
Yeah,
Okay.
This is with an aleph. So it says, these offerings were brought when a Jew appeared before God in the temple on the 3 pilgrimage festivals. And it references Exodus 23. But an offering that has to do with making, doing your pilgrimage, your regel to Jerusalem. And then finally, Gemilu Chasadim, kindness, kind acts, bestowing kindnesses. And then Talmud Torah, and the study of Torah. So a lot of this is about, how you practice your economic principles, right? You leave the corners of your fields, you give your first fruits up, right? These are the taxations, right? The first thing is the tax of leaving the corner of your fields for the poor. The second is the taxation of providing for the Levites. The third one is another tax of providing for the Levites. And by the way, I'm using this language very deliberately. We have an American obsession with taxes, and the Torah is absolutely opposed to that worldview. It's not that taxes are always done well. That's a separate question of whether taxation is a good thing or not. Taxation is a good thing because that's the essence of the mitzvot in terms of how we relate to one another. You can't just be a greedy person who steals. And Gemilu Chasadim, which is a form of generosity to other people on an individual level. And finally, the study of Torah. So the study of Torah is interesting because it doesn't feel like it goes with any of these things, but it is left to this high level. These are the things for which there is no measure, meaning these are the things that you don't have a specific amount that you're supposed to do, but you're supposed to do them. And I think that part is Mishnah Peah, if I'm not mistaken. Here, we can click on it and just see what it produces. Mishnah Peah 1:1. Yes, Pamela? Oh, the whole thing. Yeah, that first sentence was
English.
from there. Yes,
Can
go
can
ahead.
you scroll? Okay, there we go. Um,
Which one? Okay.
that one that we're looking at. Okay, you know, what I would really like to do is to look at the reform in the what's in the Reform Siddur, because this is one of my favorite prayers.
It's identical.
Because no, it's not. There is no bringing the fruits to the temple.
Oh, well, they just leave off the first sentence.
But there's, it's like celebrating the bride and the groom, visiting the sick. It's such a wonderful prayer. Elu Devarim. I mean, I don't know if it's for the morning service, but that Shabbat morning service, it's fabulous. And I love to teach this one to the kids because I call it like the basic duties of being Jewish.
All we have, the only difference is that some is left out of the reform version. And
But
actually, I'm not even
Yeah,
sure anymore because I think that Mishkan Tefillah may have put the first sentence back in. We may not
yeah.
sing it.
One thing it does have, I'm not looking at it right now, but it's the study of Torah. It is the most. It says, and the study of Torah because it leads to it all.
That's the Gates of Prayer version. So what the Gates of Prayer did was it took this last sentence. This is, by the way, not the prayer book. We're looking at the Mishnah itself. The last sentence says, the Talmud Torah
oh,
keneged kulam, and the study of Torah is equal to them all. The Reform prayer book, Gates of Prayer, in 1977, added, even though it's not in the text, because they were uncomfortable with this idea that the study of the Torah is equal to them all. It seemed like it was a dangling participle in their minds. So they added, it is equal to them all because it leads to them all.
Leak is on.
That was
okay,
an editorial decision.
Rabbi.
Yes.
So in the Reform prayer, when it talks about the fruits, um, it just references in of which a person enjoys the fruits of the world. It doesn't talk about the mitzvah of bringing the fruits. And it's got in there dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead to burial, and being devoted in prayer and making peace among people. So it goes way beyond the the what's laid out in the mitzvah, right?
No, it
Well, have
isn't.
we
It's the
not gotten
same.
there yet?
It's the same, and we haven't gotten to it.
Oh, okay. Because we were just looking at the Mishnah, right? That's what I got
We
confused
we
about.
were looking at the
Remember what
first
Brewery would
sentence.
say, cast your eyes to the end. That's Brewery would say.
That's funny. Yeah, we haven't gotten to it. So
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. I
you know
was
what I
just
could do? There's a new trick I could do. Let's see if I can do this. New split view with current tab. So now we're going to have the Mishnah, Peah, next to, let me turn this off. So so on the left is what is the prayer book, and the right side is just a part of it. So, and I'm going to use, I don't want to actually write on it, but, so, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, Elu devarim she'en lahem shiur, HaPeah ve'abikurim ve'harayon ugmilut chasadim ve'talmud Torah. That's the same. And then Elu devarim she'adam ochel perotehem, which is, these are the things which a person eats from their fruits in this world. V'hakeren kayemet la'olam haba. But the bounty of the reward, or the keren, the I guess you could say the harvest is kept for the world to come, and that's the same. I could do it in a different color, but all of this is the same. And then here's where it starts to be a little different. Here, I'll use a different color, or maybe I just won't do it. Then it says, Ilu kibud av va'em, honoring father and mother. Ugmilut chasadim, and bestowal of kindnesses. So there's a redundance, and that's one of the because we had that up here, Ugmilu Chasadim. And because of that redundance, that's one of the reasons why it's not in the Reformed Prayer Book, because it's not as poetic to have a repetition. And then you have stuff that is specific to not Mishnah Peah, but to the Talmudic source. And it includes Vahashkamat, Beit HaMidrash, Shachari V'Aravit, V'Hachnasat Orchim, right? So rising up early to go to synagogue for the morning and evening prayers, and attending to guests, right? Welcoming guests in, and visiting the sick, and accompanying a bride, Hachnasat Kala, or actually causing a bride to enter. Basically, that's interpreted as providing a wedding dress, perhaps, or making sure the bride is celebrated. Ulvayat Hamet, accompanying the dead, right? Making sure you go to a halvaya, going to funerals. And that's one reason I think why people go to funerals. It's a mitzvah, a high mitzvah. Ve'iyun tefillah, and the sort of the exploration or the going deep into prayer. And then once again, we're back to the same thing. V'hava'at shalom ben adam l'chavaro, a person who makes peace between a man and his neighbor. But then it changes again, uvein ish le'ishto, which we do not get in the Reform Prayer Book. This part is excluded, which is making peace between a man and his wife, seen as a little bit perhaps too heteronormative or cisgendered. Well, I guess it's not about cis and trans. It's really about heteronormative, about assumptions. But I think it's more of the issue of women's place in society. When the prayer book came out in 1977, that brought this back into Reform practice, the feminist movement was pretty strong. So talking about making peace between a man and his wife, maybe now it feels heteronormative, but I think back then it was, maybe why focus on marriage? Maybe we should focus on independent spirit or something along those lines. I don't know. It would be interesting to go back and find out why they took it out. Probably it just isn't as poetic, and maybe, that could be it too. And then back to the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam.
I think the idea of a man making peace with his wife is a great idea.
I'm not saying it's a bad idea.
Because, men can be contentious. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm being heteronormative.
Well, you're being feminist. You're just being a feminist. I think that's true. Men can be a pain in the butt.
Well, there's no way of writing peace between spouses in Hebrew because it's such a gendered language, right?
Yeah. How do you say spouse in modern Hebrew?
Well, there's
they say ishi. Instead of saying my husband, they say ishi, like my man, essentially. But rather than husband,
a couple is zug, right?
It's zug. Yeah, so they could say ben bnei hazug. But yeah. I think also maybe they objected to the fact that it's a man and his wife.
Right, it's a possession. It's the idea of a husband being a Baal. The modern Hebrew word for husband is Baal, which means, master or God, really. A Baal is a
owner. Yeah.
I got to tell Ralph that.
God. So, yeah, I think it's all that. But you'll see all the portion in here that is read is not in the Mishnah portion. Now, if we really want to do this, what we need to do, this is going to be tricky. Open link in right view. Okay, ignore all those lines, but they're saying that it's found in this page of Talmud. And so we're going to see probably portions of it that are on the left repeated on the right. Different portions. But it's worth us doing this really quickly. None of this parallels, at least from a quick read. Okay, here I think. Okay, mipnei haorchin v'chule. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, gedolah haknasat orchin. Greater is the bringing of guests in ke hashkamat Beit HaMidrash than it is to rise up early in the morning. De katane, as it is written, mipnei orchin umipnei bitul Beit HaMidrash. So, anyway, so they're going into which of these mitzvahs are greater, which is probably a question of maybe they do have a value, a specific value. So anyway, that's basically the expansion discussion. My guess is that this is the section that says Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, and what that means for Torah to be equal to it all. But I don't think we need to look at this much longer. Especially because I didn't realize we're way over time. Yes, Sylvia.
I know we're out of time, but I'll try to talk really fast. No, so getting back to the taxes you were talking about, tithing was so important. I mean, Pamela and I read this, we read this over and over again, that they even, the word haaretz, which is the person who doesn't know anything, it's directly related to a person who doesn't tithe properly because it's so important. And I was just looking at this quote. Rabban Gamliel says, acquire a teacher for yourself, remove yourself from doubt, and do not accustom yourself to tithing by estimate. So as important as, getting a good teacher is, don't just estimate when you're tithing. So that's what I was looking at this, that these are the first things they're talking about in this is
yes,
about taxing or tithing, making your contribution to the world.
Right, or another way to say it is how your business practices are really important. Where is that quote? Let me close this window out. Go back to the main window here, and I'll go here. There's a passage about kiso, about when you die, how will you be judged? And it's kiso, ka'aso, and koso. Let's see if we can find the source for this. I think we'll find this to be very... Oh, I must have misspelled it. Maybe it's kis with a... Like, one is judged based on their... Kis? Oh, maybe it's like that? No, I'm failing. Let me try it one last time, and maybe kis o is not spelled that way. But the point is that among the things that we are... Here it is. Perfect. How did I misspell it? Oh, kiso does not have an olive. Rabbi Eli said, in 3 matters, a person's true character is ascertained. In his cup, that is his behavior when he drinks. In his pocket, kiso. Oh, right, it's kis, that kind of kis. His conduct in his financial dealings with other people. And uvakaso, and in his anger. Right? Those are the 3 things that matter when you go up to those pearly gates. How are you with your character when you drink? When you're dealing with other people financially? And how do you deal with anger? And then, va'amri le'af bisachako. And some say a person also reveals his real nature in his laughter. I love this passage because it kind of gives you a sense of what the, at the bottom line, what does it matter? Like, what matters the most? How you interact with people when you're drunk or when you're drinking, how you deal with things financially, and how do you manage your anger? So if we were to look at that, we might come up with all sorts of perspectives about all sorts of people. So anyway, that was a nice little add-on to just, bring in a little bit of a great piece of Talmud. Any last thoughts before we wrap it up?
I really like the idea of looking at taxes as contribution and giving for the welfare of society. I think that's a wonderful perspective.
Well, you heard it from me first.
Okay.
I came up with that one day when I realized that all this focus on hating taxation is actually counterproductive to building a better society. That's where my heart goes. I'm sure you're not surprised by that. I tend toward thinking that way, that we need to have a large commons that can support all layers of society, because we're all in it together, everybody on this planet.
One thing that you started to say, and I believe it's midrash, is that in the hereafter, after you've died, what's the first thing, as you poetically said at the pearly gates, what's the first thing, God asks you is how was your business dealings? How were you in business?
Right. Exactly.
So there we go.
Yeah, no, I think, you look at the, we certainly could look at that text itself and ask, well, what is this really about? Is it about restraint? I think some of it is about self-restraint and just remembering your place in the world and being a little bit humble. I think it's all an expression of humility. But yes, it's explicit about financial dealings. Bikiso, in his pocketbook. He's looked at on the basis of his pocketbook. Was he cheap and chintzy? Was the man committed to to self only, or was there some generosity? So anyway, that seems to be the theme of the day. We have a long ways to go in this world, but
I like the part about laughter, because derisive laughter where you're making fun of people.
Yeah.
No,
right,
thank you.
Right. We unfortunately do too much of that too.
Yeah.
So wouldn't it be amazing if we could teach these values to society? Because I think left and right politically are filled with trash talk and just nastiness. And it's just gross. I'd like to be in a more dignified society. I don't mean snooty. All right. I think we're done. I'm going to turn off the recording, and thank you, everyone, and have a great rest of your week.
Well, if you want to be in a more dignified society, I think you need to get off of Facebook.
Well, I think we need to get off of all of it. I think all of it has really been a net loss. Anyway, I'm going to turn this off.
Toodaloo.